I'm thinking, shall we? stay down, pup.
Yeah, that's it. So you want to come in?
Just watching me make dinner. Yeah. So whenever I take a break inside when I'm working on the cabin interior and I prepare a meal or sit down and have a coffee or something, I open up my cell phone and I check up on my social media accounts, including your comments here on YouTube. And of course, there's some irony with that, being that I'm supposedly off-grid. And I thought it'd be a good time to address the concept of what off-grid means, what the term means and what it means to me. So off-grid, of course, the true meaning of it, the basic meaning of it, is that you're off the utility grid, and typically that means off the electricity grid. So here in Ontario, we have Hydro One distribution, which distributes our electricity. So it's a massive utility grid, and parts of it are quite old. So there's failures and brownouts and blackouts and things like that throughout the system. And one of the reasons people typically put in backup power sources to deal with those times of shortages, those outages, such as when we get an ice storm or a wind storm or something like that, or a major snowstorm, we sometimes lose our power. So typically in Canada and in Ontario in particular, where I'm from, in the GTA, Greater Toronto area, utility grid doesn't go down very often, so it's not that important to have a backup system. Now, a lot of people do. They'll have a generator hooked up so they can run their some of the basics like fridge and freezer and stuff like that and heat. But that's fairly uncommon. If you live in the country, you're more prone to brownouts and blackouts because the grid there's longer stretches. It goes through trees, forested areas that can fall down on the transmission lines and so on. So it's a lot more blackouts or outages in the country. So typically, most people in the country do have a backup plan. So that's the electrical grid. Now, for heating, the most common form of heating in Ontario, at least where I am, is natural gas. It's cheap, it's widely distributed, and it's reliable. Rarely goes down. In fact, I don't remember it ever going down, the system going down. And it doesn't rely on electricity, so even if you have an electrical outage, typically you can still run your gas appliances, even though you don't have a fan, electrical fan to blow it around. You can still use the gas source. So why go off grid in at least southern and central Ontario? There actually isn't a very good reason. It's much more expensive to go off grid. It's actually less reliable, and not only is the capital cost expensive, cheaper typically to hook up to the grid, but the long-term cost of maintaining those systems is typically more. So of course there's other reasons to go off the grid other than expense or cost, and that is self-reliance. Just not relying on the grid, not relying on the government, not relying on government rates that can change, and they have been going up quite dramatically in Ontario lately. So there are some valid reasons to go off grid, but like I said, even here, I could get electricity brought into this property it's definitely for cheaper than I can install a solar system. And even amortizing the cost of that system over a number of years probably wouldn't recover the amount of the initial capital costs in savings from Hydro One or Ontario Hydro. And then I have maintenance issues, and I have outage issues because of lack of sunshine if I go solar, lack of wind if I want wind power, and so on. So there is a lot of challenges to going off grid. Typically in the summer we have lots of sunshine. We can generate more than enough electricity with a system that's sized exactly for your needs. But throughout the rest of the year you need a way to bank or store that power, which means you're getting into big battery packs, big battery banks, and that's not reasonably priced. And over time, you need to maintain those. Typically 5 to 8 years, you need to replace those batteries. Now, from a self-reliance perspective, yes, I like the idea of going off grid, just so I have complete control over my own systems and nobody bothers me. I love this remote property. As you know, it's an unorganized township, so I don't have government oversight. I can't get permits, even if I wanted to build systems other than my septic system and driveway culvert system. Those things you legally need permits, although it doesn't look like anybody in this area actually gets them. Unless you have a bank involved. If you need a mortgage, then banks want to see that you have all the proper systems in place, all the permits that are required, or that you're following the Ontario Building Code or Canadian Building Code. Now, that doesn't apply to me, and I don't care because I'm not financing, I'm not mortgaging this cabin. Okay, so what does off-grid mean to me? I know there's some controversy and there's people on other channels that are accusing each other of not living off-grid. I don't know what that means. I don't think it applies to me. I don't think they're talking about me, and I don't know what they're accusing each other of exactly, but what I do know is that there's some dispute. I think to me, other than the very basic definition of off-grid, meaning you're not connected to the utility grid, which is typically electrical grid, that means a lot of people are living off-grid who have a renewable energy system or generators even. Now, to me, living off-grid means that you don't have any services that are monthly costs. When I started the first cabin, when I moved into that first cabin when I was 21, it was because I was poor and I didn't have any money and I didn't want to get into the typical workforce. I wanted to be able to live as cheaply as possible, which meant, first of all, I had no credit, so I couldn't get a mortgage or loans or anything like that. And then the second thing is that I didn't want to have regular bills that I had to pay in the event that I didn't want to work. I wanted to go off adventuring or building more things on the property or something. So the idea back then of having a utility bill was just not economically feasible to begin with, and it certainly didn't fit into my idea of living off-grid. Now, and I was able to do that for a short period of time. Now this is completely different. So now here I am, much older. I've bought this place cash. My wife and I bought this property cash, built this cabin with hand tools without bringing in electrical tools or gas for things like chainsaws or ATVs or stuff like that. But there's other things that I'm using, right? So I have my batteries that I have to charge, so I have to leave to charge those batteries. I have to have cellular service, which I do have a weak signal here at the front of the cabin, so I'm able to upload and download and check on social media and things like that. But I have to leave again to go into town to use a public Wi-Fi system in order to upload a video. So that means I'm reliant on the grid to some extent. I'm reliant on other services. I need a monthly cell phone bill. I need a big data plan in order to run what I have to run. I need fuel for my truck so I can go out and charge things and upload videos. And I have, of course, chargers that I have to plug in my batteries. So my solution is going to be to bring in some battery, bring in some renewable energy, solar. I will have to have a big bank of batteries that I can maintain and continue to rotate. I'll probably quite often have to actually go out off the property and have those charged, or I'm gonna have to get a generator, which means I'll be running gasoline, which is to me basically being on grid. So what does off-grid mean to me? It means being off all of the things that cause you to have monthly bills in order to pay them. That would include gasoline, that would include propane, natural gas, or heating oil to heat your home. It even includes firewood to some extent if you don't have enough property to cut your own firewood. So these are all the things that mean I'm still essentially, in my definition, still attached to the grid. I still will call this cabin off-grid, and I'll still use that term referring to what I'm doing here on some of my videos, but truly, to me, I'm not living off-grid, and I probably will never live completely off-grid because I'll continue to have battery systems, I'll continue to have things. Now, that being said, I want to reduce that as much as possible. When I was younger, as well as now, a big part of building a place off-grid and reducing expenses to as little as possible is just to reduce that stress that's always there, that financial stress that we all have, that and to varying degrees, that just eats away at us. And to me, if I can get my life down to a point where it's so manageable that I can live so minimally that no matter what I go out and do, whatever chances I take, that I can still return to this and be secure and safe and comfortable, then I don't have that stress. And to me, reducing stress is, I mean, I don't know many things that are more important to me in my life to live happy, healthy, and free. So that's part of why I'm doing this. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to what living off-grid really means and what it means to me. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great week. Take care.